There are moments when a quiet voice inside tries to warn us softly at first that something in our relationship feels off. Often we push that feeling aside. We all long for love, for connection, and sometimes our desire to hold on to the dream of a perfect relationship makes us ignore the subtle signs that trouble might be brewing. In the beginning, everything can feel like magic. Your heart races at their texts. Your days suddenly seem brighter just because they're in them. You tell yourself this is it, this might be the one. And maybe it is. But even in those early days of excitement, there might be tiny flickers of red, a comment that stings more than it should, a strange moment of possessiveness, an uneasy knot forming in your stomach for reasons you can't quite name. We often call these flickers red flags, though at first they might not look bright red. They can start as pale pink hints, easy to brush away when you're infatuated or hopeful. You might notice your partner making a joke at your expense and think they didn't really mean it right. Or you sense a touch of impatience or irritation from them when you talk about something you care about, and you quickly forgive it, attributing it to a bad day. It's natural when we care about someone, we give them the benefit of the doubt. We want the story to have a happy ending, and so we edit out the little details that don't fit the fairy tale. Perhaps you know someone who went through this, or maybe that someone is you. I remember a close friend of mine, bright and kind, who fell in love with a man who had a dazzling smile and a reassuring presence. In the beginning, she was on cloud 9. He showered her with affection and sweet texts from dawn till dusk. She felt so special, so seen. But every now and then she would mention something that gave me pause. Once she said he got annoyed that she spent an evening with our group of friends instead of him. Another time, she laughed nervously about a joke he made teasing her for being too sensitive when she expressed hurt. Each time she quickly added, "But he's really a good guy. He just cares about me, that's all." As months went by, our hangouts with her grew infrequent. When we did see her, she was always glancing at her phone, anxious and distracted. Her spark was dimmer. Eventually, she confided in me with tears in her eyes that she felt suffocated and constantly on edge in her own relationship. Those little things we had brushed off had grown into big problems. It took a lot of courage for her to finally end it. Later, she told me, "Deep down, I think I knew from the first couple of incidents. I just didn't want it to be true." Her story is all too common. The longer we ignore those early flags, the harder they become to escape. But those small details, those uneasy feelings matter. Think of them as the gentle tug of intuition, a wise but quiet friend inside you that grows uneasy when your values, your heart, or your sense of self are in danger. At first, the tug is gentle. If ignored, it might start to feel more like a weight. You might find yourself lying awake at night replaying an unsettling conversation or feeling a dull ache of anxiety after yet another day of walking on eggshells around your partner's moods. It's as if each ignored red flag plants itself in the garden of your heart, and over time those weeds start to choke the flowers. Why do we ignore these early warning signs? Often fear. Fear of being alone, fear of losing the person we've come to rely on for love or companionship. Or perhaps a fear that speaking up will lead to conflict, or worse, that our concerns will be dismissed. Sometimes we're afraid that acknowledging the problem means we have to do something about it, something as drastic as ending the relationship we so desperately want to keep. So we bargain with ourselves. We say, "It's not so bad. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe things will get better." Hope can be a double-edged sword here. On one hand, hope keeps us optimistic and patient through normal relationship rough patches. On the other hand, hope can blind us to persistent, unhealthy patterns. We keep hoping for change, for those little hurts to stop, for our love to be enough to smooth out the rough edges. It's like seeing storm clouds in the distance, but convincing yourself they might not reach you. Yet ignoring the clouds doesn't stop the rain from eventually falling. So let's talk gently and openly about these storms, these red flags that can arise in relationships. Not to judge ourselves for past mistakes or to vilify those we've loved, but to shine a compassionate light on behaviors and feelings that should never be ignored. Remember, this is a conversation rooted in understanding and empathy, not blame. We all have our imperfections, and not every red flag means someone is a bad person. Sometimes it means they have healing of their own to do, or that the two of you have serious talking to do. And sometimes, yes, it means you may need to lovingly distance yourself to protect your own heart and well-being. As we wander through these reflections, imagine you're sitting with a dear friend over a cup of warm tea on a quiet afternoon. There's rain pattering softly on the window. The atmosphere is safe and calm. We're not here to point fingers, but to explore gently to understand what each red flag might feel like, why it hurts, and why it matters. In this safe space, it's okay to admit that something hurt you or scared you. It's okay to value yourself enough to say, I deserve better than this. Now picture the early days of a relationship again. The world is bathed in rose-colored light. In that glow, even warnings are easy to overlook. But suppose one early evening you're excited to tell your partner about a success you had at work or a hobby you excelled in that day. You expect them to share in your excitement, to lift you up as you would for them. Instead, they give a half-hearted, "Oh, that's nice." Or worse, they make a sarcastic comment that leaves you feeling small. You laugh it off awkwardly, telling yourself you're being too sensitive. Yet later, when you're alone, you replay their words. Why didn't they just congratulate me? Why did it feel like they were trying to put me down? That faint sting is meaningful. A partner who belittles you even in subtle ways raises a red flag. It might have been disguised as humor or just a passing remark, but the effect is that your joy was diminished. A loving partner, a true teammate in life, delights in your happiness and achievements. If instead you consistently find that your moments of joy are met with indifference or negativity, it slowly erodes the safe foundation of support every healthy relationship needs. You might begin to hesitate in sharing good news or any news because you expect another dismissive reply. Over time, you start to shrink yourself, dim your sparkle, just to avoid that feeling of being belittled or ignored. Ask yourself quietly, is love supposed to feel like this? Love in its healthiest form is a celebration of who you are. When someone truly cares, your happiness is their happiness. They don't feel threatened by your success, nor do they need to make you feel less significant. So if you sense that pattern where your pride in yourself is always met with something that makes you feel guilty or foolish for having that pride, pay attention. The ancient Stoics often advised focusing on what is in our control, and here you cannot control how your partner reacts, but you can control whether you keep sharing your heart with someone who steps on it. Consider how a partner responds not just to your highs, but also to your lows. Imagine a day you feel down or anxious, and you reach out for comfort. Perhaps you tell your significant other that you're feeling sad or you had a rough day at work and need a listening ear. How do they respond? Do they offer empathy, a hug, a few kind words? Or do they roll their eyes, get impatient, or turn the conversation to themselves? If, when you are hurting, you find your partner is either dismissive or somehow manages to make it about their own problems, that's another quiet alarm bell ringing. In a gentle, caring relationship, both people hold space for each other's pain. They don't have to solve it, but simply being there with genuine concern is often enough. When instead you feel alone in your pain or worse, feel like you have to apologize for it, something is not right. Maybe you've experienced a moment where you muster the courage to say, "I feel hurt by what you said," only to have the response flipped back on you. "I wouldn't have said that if you weren't so sensitive. It's your fault I'm upset." This can be jarring. You approach the conversation hoping for understanding or an apology, but you walk away questioning if perhaps it really is your own fault. This is what people often call gaslighting, when someone twists a situation so much that you start doubting your own reality or blaming yourself for things that aren't your fault. It's a painful red flag because it erodes the trust you have in your own mind. One moment you are sure you had been wronged. The next you wonder if you imagined the whole thing. In these moments, grounding yourself in truth is important. Take a deep breath. Remember what actually happened, and remember that your feelings are valid. If something hurt you, it hurt you, and a caring partner should want to address that, not dismiss it. You're not too sensitive for having feelings. Each of us has a right to our emotions and our perspective. A loving partner might not always agree with your perspective, but they will at least strive to see it and acknowledge your feelings. When instead you get denial, minimization, or crazy-making excuses, it's a red flag waving for your attention. Another pattern to be mindful of is a breakdown in healthy communication. Pay attention if you feel like you must walk on eggshells whenever you need to discuss something important. Perhaps whenever you bring up a concern or feeling it blows up into a fight or they shut down completely. You might say, "I need to talk about what happened," and they respond by storming out of the room or giving you the silent treatment. Over time, you might decide it's better to keep everything inside to avoid yet another conflict that goes nowhere. But unspoken feelings don't actually vanish. They accumulate like heavy stones in your chest. A relationship where honest communication is unwelcome is like a beautiful house built on hollow ground. Sooner or later it collapses under the weight of all that is unsaid. If you can't safely talk to your partner, that itself is a red flag. Both people should feel heard in a partnership even when what's said is difficult. Without that freedom, intimacy erodes and you're left feeling alone with your thoughts and fears. Let's talk about jealousy, another red flag that often masquerades as something else. In the early flutter of romance, a partner's jealousy can sometimes be misinterpreted as flattery. Perhaps they say they don't like you talking to a certain friend, or they get upset when you hang out with colleagues after work. At first, you might think, they must really value me, they fear losing me. That feeling can even be a little exhilarating. Who doesn't want to feel deeply wanted? But healthy love is not possessive. What starts as mild jealousy can swell into controlling behavior. Maybe it unfolds like this. You find yourself checking in more often to avoid their suspicions, assuring them constantly that they're the only one. You stop spending time with some friends because it just doesn't seem worth the drama it causes. They might frame it as, "I just love you so much, I want to be with you all the time." It sounds sweet, but then why does it feel suffocating? Why do you feel guilty for wanting a life outside of them? They might start insisting on knowing where you are at all times or wanting a say in choices that used to be solely yours. In some cases, this need for control extends further. Perhaps they begin to dictate how you dress or whom you can talk to. They might even take charge of practical things like money under the guise of caring for you. "Let me handle the finances so you don't have to worry, Sasut," they say. But then you find you're being given an allowance or they're questioning every purchase you make. What may have been presented as them being protective or helpful now feels like a tightening grip. If you find that you have lost say over your own life, who you meet, what you do, even how you spend your money, stop and recognize this for what it is. Love does not require you to surrender your autonomy. No partner should treat you as property or as a child incapable of making your own choices. Reflect on this. Gently love thrives in freedom and trust, not in fear and constraint. A loving partner trusts you and wants you to have friends and joys outside the relationship. Yes, we all feel tiny pangs of insecurity sometimes, but how those are handled is key. The difference between a healthy and unhealthy response is night and day. A healthy partner might say, "I felt a little left out when you went to that party, but that's my issue to work on. I know you love me." An unhealthy partner might say, "If you really loved me, you wouldn't need to go out with your friends at all." The first response invites a discussion and self-reflection. The second is a guilt trip, a rope to tie you down. So if you've slowly found your world shrinking, fewer friends, fewer outings, your hobbies dropped because they didn't approve, stop and ask yourself, is this sacrifice actually making me happier? More often the answer is no. It's making you lonelier and more anxious. This isolation often benefits only the controlling partner, leaving you more dependent on them while they maintain their power. It's a serious red flag when your relationship cuts you off from the rest of your life. True love will never require you to isolate yourself from the people and activities you care about. Another sign that often crops up is how your partner deals with anger or stress. Life is full of frustrations, and none of us are perfect at handling them. We get tired, we snap, we say things we regret. That's human. But there is a line between occasional frustration and a pattern of volatility that leaves you scared and walking on eggshells. Ask yourself, when something goes wrong for them, a bad day at work, a minor annoyance running late, how do they behave? Do they take it out on you? Maybe you notice that if they're in a bad mood, everyone around them has to suffer. They might raise their voice, sling harsh words, or give you the cold, silent treatment without explaining why. It feels like stepping into a minefield, one wrong step and boom, an explosion of anger, or a chilling wall of silence. Living in that kind of unpredictable emotional climate is exhausting and frightening. One day a small miscommunication might be laughed off. Another day it results in shouting and slammed doors. You find yourself constantly on guard, trying to predict and prevent the next outburst. You silence your own needs and walk on tiptoes to keep the peace. Over time, you may even start to feel that you don't know which version of your partner you'll get, the kind lover or the raging critic. This eggshell existence is a glaring red flag. Everyone gets angry, but not everyone uses anger as a weapon to intimidate or control. In a healthy dynamic, even when anger arises, there's a foundation of respect that isn't crossed. There might be raised voices, but not character assassination, not threats, and certainly not violence. And afterwards, sincere apologies and efforts to do better should follow. A crucial note here: if a partner ever lays a hand on you in violence or threatens your safety, that's not just a red flag. It's a blaring siren telling you to get out and get safe. Physical abuse, or the fear of it, has no place in love. No justification. No, it only happened once. One time is enough. You deserve to feel secure in your own home and in the presence of the person who is supposed to care for you. If this boundary is crossed, the priority becomes not fixing the relationship, but protecting yourself. Reach out to friends, family, or professional help, and remove yourself from danger. It's an incredibly hard step to take, but nothing is worth risking your safety. Remember, love that hurts in that way is not love at all. It's abuse, and you do not have to stand for it. If apologies never come, that's yet another sign. Consider what happens after a fight or a hurtful incident. Does your partner ever own up to their part in it? Or is it always somehow your fault? Some people struggle deeply with saying, "I'm sorry." It can be pride or fear of admitting imperfection, or simply not caring enough to acknowledge your hurt. But a person who never apologizes or who always turns it around on you is waving a red flag high. Why? Because it means they aren't taking responsibility for their actions. If every disagreement ends with you apologizing just to restore peace, something is wrong. In the long run, one person cannot carry all the blame without breaking under the weight. A strong relationship is two people against the problem, not two people against each other, and certainly not one person against a wall of "I'm never wrong." Let's touch on honesty and trust. Trust is often described as the foundation of any relationship. Without it, everything else cracks. Think of times when something just didn't add up. Maybe they told you they'd be somewhere, and later you found out that wasn't true. Or you catch a glimpse of a text that doesn't sit right, and when you ask, their answer feels like a half-truth or an evasion. Perhaps you've noticed they hide their phone from you, or they become very defensive if you even approach certain topics. That uneasy feeling of, what if they're hiding something, can become a constant companion and uninvited third presence in the relationship. If your partner lies to you about small things, it's natural to wonder if they lie about bigger things. Being human, we all slip up or avoid truths. Occasionally, maybe they said they liked your friends when they didn't, or they made up an excuse to avoid an event. Some fibs can be harmless or born from awkwardness. But repeated dishonesty, especially about important matters, is a serious red flag. It undermines the very bedrock of safety between you. You deserve honesty, even if the truth is hard. Without it, you end up questioning everything, caught in a web of doubt and suspicion that can poison even the sweetest moments. Because at the back of your mind, you're always asking, is this real? One of the most painful trust breaches is infidelity. If you discover that your partner has been romantically or physically involved with someone else behind your back, that cuts deep. Some couples choose to work through such a betrayal, but it requires enormous effort, genuine remorse, and transparency to rebuild even a semblance of trust. If your partner doesn't acknowledge the harm they've caused, or if cheating happens more than once, these are glaring red flags that respect and loyalty may be missing. You should never feel like you are in a competition for your own partner's love or attention. Faithfulness is a basic expectation once you've mutually agreed to be exclusive. Repeated betrayal can shatter your self-esteem and sense of security. You deserve a partner who cherishes your trust, not one who treats it carelessly. Dishonesty or secrecy can come in many forms, and sometimes it's not about other people at all, but about dangerous behaviors. Maybe your partner struggles with an addiction, excessive drinking, drug use, or something else that they try to keep hidden or refuse to address. At first, you might brush it off. They just party a bit, it's no big deal. But then the incidents pile up. Perhaps they promise they'll cut back, yet each weekend you're picking them up from the bar, or each argument seems to happen when they've been using. You notice the person you love fading behind a destructive habit. It's a unique kind of heartbreak. You see their potential and the love inside them, but you also see how this substance changes that makes them unreliable or even unkind. You might feel you have to clean up their messes or lie to others to cover for them. Loving someone with an addiction can make you feel helpless and torn. It's a red flag not because they are bad, but because addiction is a powerful force that can consume both of you. Unless they truly decide to seek help, the cycle will repeat, and it often worsens. You cannot save someone by sacrificing your own well-being. If their behavior is putting you through pain and they refuse to acknowledge or change it, you may need to step back for your own health. Setting boundaries here might look like insisting they get help or not tolerating certain behaviors in your home. It's painful, but remember that protecting your peace is not a betrayal of them. It's a necessary act of self-preservation when the person you love is lost in their own struggles. Parallel to trust is the idea of openness. Not everyone is naturally open about their life or past, especially at the very start. But if many months have passed and you still feel like you only know the surface of this person, something's amiss. Perhaps they avoid answering questions about where they grew up or what their childhood was like, or they dodge conversations about past relationships and future goals in a way that leaves you feeling shut out. While everyone has their own pace for vulnerability, persistent evasion can be a flag. It may signal that they don't truly want deep intimacy, or maybe there's something they don't want you to find out. It leaves you building a relationship with a lot of blanks that you end up trying to fill with assumptions. And assumptions are a shaky glue. They never truly hold things together. Consider also how they speak about people from their past former partners, friends, family. Do they describe every ex as crazy or every friend who parted ways with them as a terrible person? At first, you might sympathize with their stories of always being done wrong. But over time, a pattern emerges. They see themselves as constantly the victim. If they never acknowledge a single thing, they might have contributed to a past fallout that's a red flag of a different sort. It shows a lack of self-reflection and accountability. And here's the catch: if nothing was ever their fault, then nothing will be their fault now or in the future. You could one day find yourself cast in the role of the next crazy ex in their life story, no matter how much you tried to do right. People who carry bitterness toward everyone behind them often carry that into their present relationships. It may mean they haven't healed, or they might be unable to see their own blind spots. Either way, it doesn't bode well for how conflicts or breakups with them might go. Healthy people can usually say, "That relationship didn't work out and I learned X from it," rather than, "They were awful and I did everything right." Think about respect for boundaries as well. Boundaries are those invisible lines that protect our sense of self. They can be physical, like needing personal space, or emotional, like not wanting to be yelled at, or social, like having certain times that are just for you or your friends. A caring partner honors those lines because they honor you. How does your partner handle your boundaries if you say you need a night to yourself? Do they guilt-trip you? If you ask them not to look through your phone, do they respect that, or do they snoop anyway? If you express that something they've done hurt you and you need it not to happen again, do they take it seriously? A red flag rises anytime someone consistently disregards your stated boundaries. Perhaps you mentioned early on that you value a certain religious or moral principle, and later they pressure you to act against it. Or you simply asked for an hour of silence to focus on something, and they kept interrupting, not out of necessity, but just because they wanted attention. In a loving relationship, partners sometimes sacrifice their immediate wants to respect each other's needs. If you rarely see that happening, if it feels like your needs, preferences, or comfort zones are always being bulldozed, take note. You should not have to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm, as the saying goes. You should not have to violate your own boundaries to please your partner. Consider also how your partner treats others, especially people they don't need to impress. Perhaps you've seen them interact with waiters, or talk about strangers, or deal with their own family. Is there a kindness there, a basic respect, or do they easily dehumanize or mock people? It might not seem directly related to you, but it is telling. If someone lacks empathy in general, eventually that lack of empathy will be turned toward you. Maybe they've always been sweet to you in the early days, but one day when angered, they call you a name or insult your character in a way that shocks you. You remember how crudely they spoke of an old friend or an ex and realize with a heavy heart that now you're seeing that side aimed at you. A person who habitually belittles or uses cruel words, whether toward you or others, shows a red flag of emotional immaturity or cruelty that can deeply wound a relationship. Let's shift to another quiet scenario, the relationship that seems to be losing its warmth. Not all red flags are about overt mistreatment. Some are about the slow cooling of effort and care. You might notice that the sweet gestures have faded, where once they might bring you a small gift just because now there's nothing. Where you used to have long, meaningful talks deep into the night, now it's mostly silence or surface-level chatter. Perhaps you used to cuddle every night, but now they turn their back to you and seem more interested in their phone or the TV. You try to ignite conversation or plan romantic outings, but they seem uninterested or too busy. You find yourself missing the closeness you once had. This could be a sign of many things: stress, personal issues, or indeed a red flag that their investment in the relationship has waned. The key here is whether they are willing to talk about it and work on it or not. If you bring up, "I feel like we aren't as close as we used to be," do they acknowledge it and engage in that discussion, or do they dismiss it as you imagining things? A dismissive attitude to your need for connection is concerning. It signals that your feelings of disconnection aren't important to them, or that they might be emotionally checking out. Similarly, consider if they stop sharing things with you. In a healthy bond, partners are usually each other's confidants. If something wonderful or terrible happens, you're among the first they want to tell. If you find out about significant events in their life much later or through someone else, it can feel like a betrayal, even if not intended as one. You might ask, "Why didn't you tell me?" and get a shrug or a non-answer. Being gradually shut out from their inner world is painful and, yes, a red flag. It's one thing not to dump every minor detail of the day on each other, but if they no longer seek you out for emotional sharing, the intimacy is fraying. Sometimes couples drift due to life circumstances, but then they find their way back with effort, communication, and love. The red flag here is when only one of you seems to notice or care about the drifting. One person cannot keep the connection alive all by themselves indefinitely. It has to be a mutual tending, like two hands cupping a flame to shield it from the wind. If your hand is the only one there, the flame might go out despite all you do. Now let's recall the idea of that gut feeling again, our inner knowing. Maybe you can recall a time when everything looked fine on the surface, nothing overt to point at, yet you just felt something was off. A sense of unease on a quiet Sunday afternoon, sitting next to your partner without any particular conflict, but an intuition that something's wrong. Possibly you notice they're a million miles away in thought, or maybe it's your own heart whispering that you're not truly happy, even if you can't pinpoint a single event that caused it. That intuition is a powerful guide forged from countless subtle cues and your deep subconscious understanding of what you need. In relationships, intuition often kicks in early when a red flag appears, even if our rational mind hasn't acknowledged it yet. It's like how animals sense an earthquake before it hits. You feel the tremors in your soul before your mind sees the crack in the relationship's ground. We often stifle this intuition because it's inconvenient. Who wants to believe that something so beautiful could turn out to have dark corners? But ignoring your intuition is like closing your eyes while walking a path strewn with obstacles. You might stumble when you could have avoided the fall. Take a moment to think about what your instincts have told you in past relationships or even in a current one. Have you ever felt a knot in your stomach as you said yes to something you didn't want to do? Or a pang of sadness even while smiling next to your partner in a photo? These small emotional responses are signals. They come from a place deep within that is attuned to your true needs and values. Mindful living invites us to notice these signals without immediately judging or dismissing them. Maybe you were raised to see the best in people, to forgive easily, which is a beautiful trait. Mindfulness doesn't ask you to abandon compassion. It asks you to also be compassionate with yourself, to not abandon yourself. Imagine a friend came to you and described your relationship as their own. What would you think of it? Often we advise our friends more wisely than we treat ourselves. We might tell a friend, "You don't deserve to be treated like that. You should speak up or step away." Yet when it's us, we linger in doubt. Apply some of that loving objectivity to your situation. If you would worry for a friend or sibling in your shoes, then you should worry for you too. It's not selfish. It's necessary. The philosopher Epictetus, a Stoic, reminded us that we are the guardians of our own selves. We cannot hand that duty completely over to another, no matter how much we love them, because if they prove careless with our well-being, we are the ones who must live with the damage. Let's talk about personal responsibility on both sides. None of us is a perfect partner. You might recognize times you were moody or unfair. The question is, how did each of you deal with it? Do you both strive to take responsibility and improve? Or is it mostly one-sided? A healthy relationship involves two people who can say, "I was wrong, I'm sorry I hurt you," and then do the work to not repeat that hurtful behavior. If only one of you is doing that, it breeds imbalance and resentment. If neither of you is doing that, then communication has probably broken down entirely. Sometimes a red flag can be within ourselves too, a tendency to accept too little. If we don't believe we deserve better treatment, we might stay in bad situations far too long. It might stem from childhood past trauma or low self-esteem convincing us that love has to be earned through endurance, that it's normal for it to hurt. Here, emotional healing begins with acknowledging the wound. It was never your job to endure cruelty or neglect to be worthy of love. You have always been worthy of kindness and respect, simply by being human, by being you. Realizing this can feel like a sunrise after a long night. You start to see that those red flags you endured were not reflections of your value, but of the other person's struggles and choices. This internal tendency can also lead to a kind of codependency. A relationship pattern where you pour all your energy into keeping the other person happy at the expense of your own needs. You might become hyper-aware of their moods, adjusting your behavior to avoid setting them off. You might believe if you just try harder, be more agreeable, more pleasing, almost perfect, then maybe they'll finally give you the love you crave without the pain. In doing so, you bend and bend, possibly, until you feel like you've lost your own shape. It's an easy trap to fall into, especially when you love someone deeply. But love is not meant to be martyrdom. You should not have to sacrifice your dignity, your dreams, or your peace of mind to make a relationship work. If you have to constantly tiptoe or people-please, that's not a sustainable situation. Recognizing this pattern in yourself is a powerful realization. It allows you to begin the work of setting boundaries, however small at first, and prioritizing self-care. It reminds you that your life is yours to live, not something to be offered up on the altar of someone else's happiness. A partner who truly values you will want you to stand tall, not cower meekly. They will want you to have a voice and to use it even if it sometimes says, "No, I'm not okay with this." Sometimes people raise these red flags because of their own pain. A partner who belittles might have been belittled themselves and think it's normal. One who cannot communicate might have never learned how to be vulnerable. Those who are excessively jealous might have been hurt before or fear abandonment intensely. It's okay to understand these things. Empathy is part of love, but understanding does not mean you must tolerate being hurt continually. You can hold compassion for someone's wounds while also holding firm to the truth that it's not your role to be their punching bag or their cure. They have to choose to heal and change. You cannot do it for them by suffering in silence. As the Stoic Marcus Aurelius once introspectively wrote, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." Now, this doesn't mean to accept others hurting you. Rather, it can be read as have empathy, because people are flawed but also have standards for your own behavior and what you allow in your life. You can kindly tell someone, "I understand you're stressed, but I won't accept being yelled at. Let's talk when you're calmer." This is a boundary with compassion, acknowledging their human tolerance with others, but also upholding your own standard, strict with what you accept for yourself. It's remarkable how setting a boundary, though scary at times, immediately clarifies the state of a relationship. A healthy partner will recognize and respect it, even if it takes adjustment. An unhealthy one will plow through it or try to punish you for setting it. How they react reveals whether the red flag is likely to change or just grow redder. It's often said that those who get angry at you for having boundaries are the ones who benefited from you having none. Think about that. Boundaries are not there to hurt anyone. They only inconvenience those who wish to take more than what is fair or kind to give. A loving person, even if surprised or momentarily defensive, will ultimately respect your line and try to understand it. Someone who cannot respect it will likely double down on the hurtful behavior or try to make you feel guilty for standing up for yourself. That response itself speaks volumes. At this point, maybe you're thinking of specific moments, specific red flags that resonate. It might be a sick feeling you got when they pressured you into intimacy. You weren't ready for making you feel like you owed it to them. Or the time they gave you the silent treatment for days and had you doubting yourself, desperate to make amends for an offense you didn't even understand. Maybe it's remembering how they always chatted with people on social media, inappropriately assuring you it's no big deal, and you felt crazy for being bothered by it. Or the time they hinted they might hurt themselves if you ever left, making you feel trapped by responsibility and fear. Or how every fight somehow ended up revolving around your flaws and never their behavior. If any of these examples ring a bell, realize you're not alone. Many of us have been there, not because we're foolish, but because love is powerful and hope is stubborn. We cling to the person we believe someone could be, even if who they are in the moment is hurting us. It's important to say this: no one deserves to be in a relationship that makes them feel lesser, unsafe, or unloved. Not you, not anyone. Recognizing red flags is not about being cynical or expecting perfection. It's about expecting decency and mutual care. It's about saying, "I will not abandon myself just to keep someone else." Because what good is a relationship if one of the two people in it fades away? Now suppose you've identified some of these red flags. What next? This is where quiet self-discovery truly comes into play. There is no one-size-fits-all solution because relationships and people vary. Some red flags can be worked through if both parties are willing and able to grow. Others are absolute deal breakers that require you to leave for your safety and sanity, like any form of abuse or constant betrayal. Many fall in between in that gray area, where only you can weigh the pros and cons. Take some time to reflect on what you've experienced. Write it down, perhaps, or talk to a trusted friend. Sometimes seeing it on paper or hearing yourself say it out loud to someone safe can be eye-opening. You might realize just how much you've been tolerating. Or maybe you'll see a pattern, perhaps. Every time you try to talk about the relationship issues, your partner diverts it. Or that you've been making excuses for their behavior because when they're nice, they're really nice, and you hang on to those moments as justification. Ask yourself gently, but honestly, if nothing changed, if the red flags you see now stayed the same or even grew more intense over time. Could you be happy? Could you truly thrive? Often, our heart whispers no to that question, even when our mind wants to shout, maybe. Listen to that whisper. It might save you years of heartache. Also, consider the efforts, if any, your partner has made when issues were brought up. Did things improve, even for a while? Or were there promises that turned out empty? To truly heal red flag behaviors, one must first acknowledge them. If you've never even been able to get your partner to see your perspective, chances are slim that things will magically change one day out of the blue. Change usually requires awareness and dedicated work. If they deny, minimize, or continue hurting you in the same ways the writing might be on the wall, facing the reality of red flags can be tough. It often means coming to terms with the fact that the relationship we have is not the relationship we hoped for. There can be grief in that, like mourning the loss of an imagined future or the person you believe they were. It's okay to mourn that. Allow yourself to feel sadness or anger. These too are valid feelings on the path of self-discovery and healing. But also, allow yourself to feel empowered by the clarity you're gaining. Clarity, even when painful, is a form of freedom. To see clearly means you can make choices that honor your authentic self rather than choices based on an illusion or wishful thinking. You might worry, what if I never find anyone else? What if this is as good as it gets? That fear is a common trap. It ties into a deep human fear of loneliness and the unknown. But remember, being with someone and still feeling profoundly alone is far more isolating than actually being alone. When you're alone, you have the chance to find yourself, to reach out to friends, to grow, to invite new, healthy love into your life. Eventually, when you're with the wrong person, you might feel like you're drowning while clinging to them. Letting go can feel terrifying, like you're adrift at sea, but in time you realize you're actually swimming towards solid ground, towards safety, toward genuine love perhaps, and always towards self-respect. You might discover that being on your own after the initial ache passes is not as scary as it once seemed. There can be a quiet comfort in coming home to a space that is entirely yours, a day that you can shape however you want. You reconnect with friends and family without fear, pick up old hobbies or find new ones, and little by little you remember what it feels like to breathe freely. Solitude, when chosen and not forced upon you by isolation, can be a healing balm. It gives you the chance to rebuild your strength and rediscover yourself piece by piece without someone else's shadow looming over your light. No matter what, learning to spot and acknowledge red flags is a lesson that will serve you in all walks of life. It's not just about romantic relationships. It teaches you about boundaries and friendships, about respect at work, about your own non-negotiables as a person. You start to develop an internal compass that points you toward people who treat you well and away from those who consistently hurt you. It's a form of self-care and wisdom that once earned stays with you. In quiet moments, you might reflect on how you want to be treated and how you want to treat others. Perhaps you value honesty above all, or kindness, or loyalty. Whatever your core values, hold them close. They are your guiding light. When red flags appear, it's often those values being challenged. Feel that alignment or misalignment in your chest, that sense of rightness or wrongness. Mindfulness teaches us to sit with those feelings without immediately trying to squash them or act on them. Just notice. I felt hurt when this happened. I felt disrespected when they said that. I felt anxious, and I don't want to feel anxious every day. These acknowledgments are powerful. If you choose to address red flags with your partner, approach it in a moment of calm if possible. Speak from your heart. Use I statements like, I feel anxious when X happens, or I feel belittled when you joke about Y. Observe their response. Do they become defensive and angry, or do they soften and listen? It will tell you a lot. Remember, you are not responsible for how they react. You are only responsible for communicating your truth kindly and clearly. How they handle your truth is up to them. Should the time come to walk away, know that it isn't a failure on your part. It might actually be one of the bravest and most caring things you do, caring for yourself, and even in a way caring for them by not enabling destructive patterns. Ending a relationship that is riddled with red flags is acknowledging that love cannot thrive in that environment as it stands. It's like deciding to leave a beautiful but haunted house. Yes, there were lovely memories inside, but the ghosts of pain and fear made it unlivable. You step out not because you hate what's inside, but because you cherish your peace more. Healing after such a relationship can take time. Be patient with yourself. One day you might be sorting groceries or driving alone and suddenly feel a wave of sadness or anger about something that happened months or years ago. Emotions can resurface in waves. Each wave you allow to wash over you without drowning in it is a step toward letting it pass. Some scars might remain, but let them be reminders of what you learned and how far you've come, not of any weakness. You survived and you grew wiser. You learned to hear your inner voice more clearly and to trust it. In time, you might even find it in your heart to forgive not for their sake, but for yours. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting or excusing the harm. It means releasing your grip on the anger so it no longer controls you. By forgiving someone who hurt you, you say, I refuse to carry this bitterness any longer. And just as importantly, forgive yourself for any blame you've placed on your own shoulders. You did the best you could with what you knew then. This act of forgiveness, both outward and inward, can lighten your spirit, clearing space for future joy and trust. In time, as you rebuild or continue your life, you might find someone new, or you might find joy and strength in being on your own for a while. Either way, those lessons will guide you to demand and give healthier love. You'll notice early on if someone respects you or not. You'll communicate more openly about what you expect and what you can give. And remarkably, by valuing yourself, you send out a silent signal to others to value you too. And to those who won't, well, they will understand that you won't stick around to be mistreated. Self-respect is a powerful filter. Now take a deep breath. This has been a lot to take and a lot of reflection and emotional journeying. If your heart feels heavy from recognizing truths in your own life, gently remind yourself that knowledge is power, and awareness is the first step to positive change. You have illuminated the dark corners. There is no need to be afraid of them anymore. You can see what's there, and you can decide how to move forward with that knowledge. Remember through all of this that you are worthy of love and respect. It is the baseline for any relationship you engage in. If someone cannot meet that baseline, it is not a reflection of your worth, but of their capacity. You are not asking for too much when you ask to be treated kindly. You're asking for the basic foundation upon which love can grow. Also remember that relationships are not static. People can change, but only if they truly want to and put in the work. Some may rise to the occasion when faced with losing you, others might not. Your job isn't to gamble on that. Your job is to take care of your own mental, emotional, and physical well-being. To be the guardian of your peace. The Stoics teach us to focus on what we can control, and in relationships you cannot control another's will or heart. You can only control your own choices, whether to speak up, whether to stay, whether to leave. As we bring this gentle conversation to a close, imagine that friend in front of you again, the one we pictured having tea with. Except this time, perhaps that friend is you. What would you say to comfort and encourage yourself? Perhaps you deserve a love that feels like a safe home. You deserve mornings of peace and nights of shared warmth. Yes, every relationship has challenges, but love should never make you feel worthless or afraid. Trust yourself. You're stronger than you know, and you have the right to put yourself first when something is hurting you. It's time to welcome the kindness you give so freely to others back into your own heart. You might also remind yourself that you're proud for coming this far, for having the courage to finally see things clearly. You might promise that you will never settle for a love that requires you to sacrifice your soul, that from now on you will cherish yourself the way you hope to be cherished by another. Life is a journey of learning, unlearning, and growth. Every relationship, even the painful ones, teaches us more about who we are and what we need. Take those lessons and move forward with hope. Not the blind hope that ignores red flags, but the radiant hope that comes from trusting in your own worth and that better things await. When you honor yourself, you open the door for healthier love into your life, whether that's love from others or the deep love of yourself that fills you with peace. When you clear the weeds from the garden, you make room for flowers to bloom. Some of those flowers will be self-love, self-respect, and perhaps in time, the love of someone who meets you in that garden with equal respect and care. When that day comes, you will recognize it by the peace and warmth you feel. The contrast with what you left behind will be stark. Where once there was tension and doubt, now there is ease and trust. These are the green flags of a healthy love, and having witnessed the other side, you will treasure them deeply. You'll know that honesty feels different from deceit, that gentleness feels different from anger, that consistency feels different from chaos. In that new chapter, you can finally exhale, finally be wholly yourself without fear. In this calm realization, you find that what once was a frightening red flag is now a well-understood sign that you won't ignore again. It's a guidepost that helps you navigate toward the life and relationships you truly deserve. And you do deserve so much goodness and peace. So let the rain outside continue to fall softly. Let it wash away the doubt and fear. Here you sit in the safe haven of your own understanding, a little wiser and a lot stronger. The quiet voice inside is not so quiet anymore. It speaks with clarity and compassion now. Listen to it. It will lead you home to yourself and to the love that was meant for you, one where respect and kindness are the norm, and where red flags can be acknowledged and addressed, or else left behind in the past. Trust that voice. It has been with you from the start, and if you listen, it will guide you toward a better, brighter tomorrow.